This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abayim. We continue in Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. Okay, so just a point of information. I'm going to be out of town the next 2 days. So we're already a day ahead. If you remember, we got a day ahead. I'm going to be in Montreal. And we're 1 day ahead. So maybe either we'll do 2 now or do 1 now and 1 later. Maybe we'll do 2 now. Let's see how it goes. So let's start. We're up to Natilas Yadayim Shachar, Siman Zayin. We're up to Seif Gimel. Natilas Siman Zayin, Sif Gimel. Hitel Mayim. Somebody urinated, V'hisiach Daitem Lahato Mayim. And then he diverted his mind from having to urinate. V'achakach Nimlach. And then he changed his mind. V'heto Mayim Pamachars. And he urinated again. Tzarch Levarch Beis Pamim Asher Yatzar. You have to say Asher Yatzar twice. The example would be, let's say you come over to me and you borrow $1. And then, because you want to buy a can of Coke. I'm talking about like in 1940 when Coke was only $1. Nowadays it's like, I don't know, it's like $8. But, and then you decide you want to drink another can of Coke and you borrow another $1. So now you owe me $2. The fact that you didn't pay me back the first time, it doesn't mean now you only have to pay me back once. So you owe God an Asher Yatzar. So you will go to the bathroom again. You owe him another Asher Yatzar. They say, no, I'm gonna dig 1 Asher Yatzar. You owe me $2. So it says Mishna Berura, Beis Pa'amim. However, now it's interesting. The Dirshu brings that the Maimer Mordechai says, let's say you went a 3rd time. He says if you forgot twice or more, I mean in this case you only forgot once, so you're making 2 Asher Yatzar. But he says if you forgot twice or more, you only make 1 Asher Yatzar for all of the previous times. In other words, you forgot and now you go again, so you make 1 for now and 1 for what you forgot. But if, in other words, if you went a 3rd time and you forgot twice, then you only make 1 makeup. So obviously my mashal with the $1 would not be a good mashal according to the Maimer Mordechai. However, the Pri Megadim is of the opinion, you got to make an Asher Yatzar for every time you miss. This is all in the Shita of the Mechaber. However, the Mishna Berura says, K'nematzinu le'inyan tefillah. Now what about Tshuva? The guy comes to convert. The guy comes, he said, I don't know anything. He said, you want me to get up for Shachris? No problem. You want me to learn every day? No problem. You want me to eat gefilte fish? No problem. They say, sir, you need to make 50 million Asher Yatzars now. So I'll be spending the rest of my life making Asher Yatzar. So he brings from Rosh Zalman that even according to the Pri Megadim, who says you got to make an Asher Yatzar for every Asher Yatzar that you miss, you don't have to make an Asher Yatzar the amount of times. He says, Lefi she'ein levarech berchas hoidah, only on the times that you remember and you feel a hoidah for. But the guy, he hasn't made Asher Yatzar. Okay, it's interesting. Lamaisa, let's see the Mishna Berura. Why would you have to make an Asher Yatzar every time? Shem ta, if you made a mistake, v'lo yispalo shachris, mispalo mincha shtayim. You daven mincha twice. Aval harbe me'achroinim cholkim ma'apsakzeh. Many achroinim dispute this. The soivim, they hold the shani tefillah. Asher Yatzar is not like tefillah because tefillah is shimakam carbon, and by carbon you have carbon tashlumin. V'shach v'tashlumin asher enkem Asher Yatzar asher berchas hayda yoytza b'hada achas al harbe pa'amim kimisha achal shtei pa'amim v'siach daita bein time. Just like somebody who ate twice. And he's Mesiach Das, Shemavarch Berchas Hamazon, Achas Al Shteyem. So basically, many Achronim argue on the Shulchan Aruch. Who are they? The Sha'ar Tzion brings the Bach, the Shla, the Magen Avram, the Gra, and Lamaisa, the Taz agrees with the Mechaber. But you have enough big guns on the other side that the Mishna Berura says, V'yesh l'hakol b'safek brachos. You can be mekel. If Lamaisa you forgot to make an Asher Yatzar, then you make 1. Uchlachila Nachin lizar levarch techav Asher Yatzar achat toras mayim. L'chachil you should make Asher Yatzar immediately. D'shema yitzarch oir achar kach lato mayim, because you might have to go again. V'adin b'gdolim, the same thing would be for gedolim. In other words, somebody had to go for gedolim, make it immediately because you just never know when you might have to go again. Okay, now we begin basically a new miktsaya in halacha, hilchos tzitzis. Hilchos tzitzis va'atifasai. Halacha number 1, yisatef b'tzitzis. You should wrap yourself in your tzitzis v'yivarech mu'umad and make a bracha on the tzitzis standing. Now, do you have to wear tzitzis? Do you have... Sif Dalet, thank you. Sif Dalet. Sorry, we're going to rewind that, okay? Ein Shiur lahashtin mayim. There's no Shiur to a minimum amount that a person has to urinate. Kafilu letipa achas chayv levarich. If somebody just goes one droplet, they have to make an asher yatzar. She'im yisasei manekim lahotzi ativa hi haya kasher loy v'chayv loydes. If that droplet would not have been able to be expelled, it would have been shvera maisis. Even one droplet could be harmful for a person. V'chayv loydes. So there's no shear. Person says, I tried. If you tried, probably something came out, and you have to make an asher yatzar. Okay, simin ches. Hilchos tzitzis v'atifasai yisatef b'tzitzis v'yivarech mu'umad. One should wrap himself in his tzitzis and make a bracha on the tzitzis standing. Now, does a person have to wear tzitzis? Because so look, I only have to put strings on a 4-cornered garment. It's not my style. I like wearing 5-cornered garments. Or I like wearing no cornered garments. So Rav Moshe famously says in a tshuva that minhag Yisrael is that we are makbid to wear davka a 4-cornered garment in order to mekayim the mitzvah d'oraisa of tzitzis, and therefore, yes, one is obligated to put on this 4-cornered garment and wear it. Now, you wrap yourself, says the Mishna Berura, when? Miyad achar natilas yadayim. Right after you wash your hands. Why shouldn't you put on the tzitzis before you wash natilas yadayim? So the Dirshu brings in the Prima Gadim and the Levushei Srad, because you really need to make the bracha on the tzitzis before you do the atifa, and you can't make the bracha before the atifa. So you say, but we're not making the bracha. Married men are not making the bracha until you put on the talis gadol. So for us, maybe you should put on the talis katan right away. Number 2, it is prohibited to touch your clothing before natilas yadayim, like the Mishna Berura brought in Siman Dalet Siv Katan Beis. That you don't touch your clothing before Negel Vaser. Why? Some kind of mystical reason. You don't touch the clothing before Negel Vaser. What would the nafkamina between these two reasons be for a married man? If the reason is because you're supposed to make the bracha before, we don't make the bracha before. We wait for the talis gadol, so then you could put on your talis katan right away. However, if the reason is that you don't touch your clothing before Negel Vaser, so then don't put on the talis katan until after you wash Negel Vaser. So then it comes out like this. If you're washing by your bed, so you wash the Negel Vaser, and then put on your talis katan right away. Why? The Mishna Berura says, Kadei shelo yelech arba amas b'lei tzitzis, so as not to go 4 cubits without tzitzis. So, is it only usher to walk dalet amas without tzitzis, or is it even prohibited to stay in one place and not wear tzitzis? The mashmais of the Mishna Berura is there's no iser kisha oimed b'li tzitzis. Rav Shlomo Zalman says not like that. Rav Shlomo Zalman says it's mistaber that even if you're not walking, don't be in a state without tzitzis. The Mishna Berura is not saying the Isser is walking, but the Mishna Berura is just emphasizing the importance of doing it right away. Now, you should make the bracha standing. Ma'umad, Ratzoloymar, ha'atifa v'habracha shtehen ba'amida. The atifa, wrapping yourself, and the blessing should be ba'amida. So it's interesting. The wrapping should be ba'amida, and the bracha should be ba'amida. Why do you have to now? You're saying wrapping. Who wraps the talis katan? So it's interesting that we're going to see later on in Sif Katan Zayin that we who pater the bracha on the talis katan with the talis gadol, we don't do an atifa on the talis katan. So in that case, do we need to be standing when we put on tzitzis? The Mishna Berura just says, you need to wrap the tzitzis ba'amida, you need to make the bracha ba'amida, but we don't do either. We don't wrap, and we don't make a bracha. So do we have to put on the tzitzis standing? We'll get to that in a second. Why do you wrap the tzitzis standing? Ha'atifa mishum d'chsev lachem. V'alfinon gzeir shava me'omer d'chsev gam kein lachem. We make gzeir shava from the omer, that it says also lachem, uva oimer ksiv mehachel chermesh ba'kama. By the oimer it says when the sickle starts on the standing grain, v'darshin ba'koima. So the maisa atifa should be standing. Ba'bracha mishum dechol berchas hamitzvos tzarich liyos ba'amida. V'hu rak lecharchila. This is all only lecharchila. The b'diavad yatzar b'shem b'chal gavne b'diavad your yotzei sai if you wrapped the tzitzis ba'amida or if you made the bracha ba'amida. V'skimu roi v'achronim lecharchila tzarich liyos habracha koydem ha'atifa. The achronim say that charchila you should make the bracha even before you wrap. That is when you're holding in your hand for roitzos atipa and you want to wrap with it. Because that is precisely immediately before you perform the mitzvah. Don't make the bracha when the talis is still in the bag. That is much too early. Okay, so one thing directly on this. The Dirshu brings from the Munkatcher that the implication is that if you're mavarech, when you're holding the talis before you, when it's unfolded, that's oivel asiyasan. He brings the minog, based on many achronim, to make the bracha after you're already holding it behind you. I guess it's sort of a split second difference. From reading the Mishna Berura, you take it out of the bag and it's unfolded even before you sort of like flip it behind you, getting ready, even when you're holding in front of you, that's also oivel asiyasan. And perhaps there's a hiddur of waiting until so you're already holding it behind you. Now, regarding what we said before, that only the wrapping has to be standing, and only the bracha has to be standing, Rav Shlomo Zalman writes in Mincha Shloimeh, the Dirshu quotes, that it could be you don't have to be standing when you don the talis katan, because the chiyuv to put on tzitzis is only once you're wearing it. That's why there's no specific chiyuv to stand while you're donning the tzitzis. Only when you're wrapping it after you already are wearing it. I don't know what that means, because you usually wrap it before you wear it. And he quotes, it seems like it is not a halachic imperative, or at least it's not clear that you need to be standing when you actually dress yourself in a talis katan. I have to admit, I don't think I ever heard that before. So the lashon the Dirshu brings from Shlomo Zalman is yitachein. It's possible, but I guess let's look into that further. Okay, so that's the Mishna Berura for today.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.